All right, I want to welcome our viewers on Kennesaw Happenings. I'm Golfer Pete, and on the show today, we have the grandson of a resident. So a real special one because when I ran into John, he fast forwarded a bunch of years, and I knew him when he had one truck. Now he has quite a few more. So we're going to hear his story on our podcast today. So John, would you introduce yourself and just who you are, who you serve? And it'll give us, our viewers, an idea of who they're listening to. And you can mention your grandma too. Okay.
Yes. So grandson of Judith Ely. She's awesome. She's a feisty woman. If you've ever played cards with her, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But yeah, Pete and I met years ago when I first started my business in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of me in a truck, and he came up and said, "Hey, I do marketing." He was in the marketing world and told me about the company he was working for at the time, and told me he could get me seen online. So I guess I give him thanks for getting us first visible. Even even customers that were looking for us at the time, like who were active customers of ours, couldn't find us. So if your current customers can't find you, then people that are looking on who to do business with are definitely not gonna find you. So that's kind of was our original way we met.
Yeah, and it's changed so much. I shut down my digital business about a year and a half ago. So I spent a lot of time in that industry. And so give us an idea, like what was the reason you started ProCare?
Yeah, so my history, and we do pest control. We do termites, mosquitoes, household pest control. I grew up in Kennesaw, graduated from Harrison High School, for those of you that know where that's at here in Cobb County. I then, after graduating, I went on a mission for my church for a couple of years. I put in a semester of college just before leaving. And so when I got back, I went back to BYU, where I had attended school. And I was doing a business degree. I did college jobs, just trying to, server, smoothie business, just trying to, not go into a lot of debt like you typically have to do when you're doing school. And of course, coming back from a mission, which was self-paid, I really had no money. I remember I was dating a girl at the time that, and I was like, I don't have any money for this relationship to really go anywhere.
Yeah.
That girl was not who I ended up marrying. I'm married now for 4 kids, so made grandma happy with four grandbabies, and picked a great woman. But actually, that my wife, I met her because I had some buddies that recruited me to go sell pest control in Seattle, Washington, and so I was going to school at BYU, then went to Seattle to sell pest control. Was horrible at first, but had to figure it out. Just like a lot of new jobs, had to learn the ropes, and then I was able to be a top performer on the team there. I then tried to recruit at the time. Now my wife, at the time, she was just someone I had known growing up, and she wouldn't come. So we ended up I ended up having to marry her to get her to come with me to Texas. So she came and sold pets. She basically said, I'm getting a nursing degree. I don't need to sell pest control, no thanks. And so we met up, became fast friends, and actually it was a quick marriage. And then we were in Houston, Texas, doing pest control. I was running a sales team there, and then worked in LA. So that's where I got my experience in the industry. I ended up starting a business and was kind of traveling around to different states doing pest control, starting up new offices. I probably would have stayed with that company had it, I care a lot about if I'm going to tell somebody, hey, this is the best, it's a great product. It's in your best interest to switch over to our company or to use our company. But the company I was working for was more about growing really fast and then selling it off to a bigger brand. That would, buy them out, and they would take that cash and roll it over into more marketing. So they're more of a marketing company that really wasn't interested in the quality. And that's kind of where I hit a roadblock, and where I said, okay, what I'm offering is not the best that I was promised it would be. And so I had a decision, either go work for a different company, which I had several options I looked at, or I could do my own thing. And so I talked to several companies before. A few of them, I brought up the idea that I might just go do my own thing. And they're like, you don't want to do that. That's a nightmare. Do you know how hard it is to start a company? You know how many companies fail? 1 out of 10 fail in the first 5 years. And then 1 out of 10 are going to fail, between, before 10 years, of those that actually make it past 5. And so your statistics of survival are slim. And I listened, but for some of them, I was like, that's kind of what I want, though. I want that challenge. I understand the risk, and I had met a guy actually in LA. He was I would say in his 60s, and he had worked in the industry for a long time. And he had asked me why I didn't do my own thing. He owned a pest control business, had worked for companies before, and I said, well, here's all my concerns. He said, how old are you? And at the time I was like 20, I was 23. And he's like, do you have any kids? And I was like, I've got actually my first on the way. He's like, do it before you have kids, or you'll be like me in my, now wishing I would have done this years ago. And so that hit me pretty hard. I was really appreciative for his, he obviously cared enough to just even talk to me. He was coming home from work. I was out in his neighborhood knocking doors, selling for a competitor, and he was willing to take some time. And I wish I could track him down and thank him, because looking at it now, he probably didn't realize the impact that had on me at that time. So I'll have to, I have an idea of where he lives in California, but I'll have to see if I don't remember his business name or anything. Yeah. So I'll have to see if I can track him down. That would be cool.
Well, I think we have some resources in California. So that would be somebody to have that conversation with, because anytime somebody encourages you to do something that it's a little scary, because going into your own business, the success rates are very low because it's not easy. What would you say now? Well, starting out, what was your biggest challenge that you found yourself? Because, the weight's on your shoulders. You either make it happen or it doesn't happen. What could you share with our viewers was helpful for you?
Yeah, I would say the big thing for, when we started our company, it was a little reverse. Usually when you're starting a business, you go, okay, I've got a great product, or I've got a great, idea and or service, and then you say, okay, now how do we market this? How do we get customers? For me, it was a little reverse, where I'd already run the marketing, I'd already done the sales. I just had never seen a good product created. So I had an idea of what we wanted to create, but the first step was, okay, how do I make myself better in knowledge of the industry, products, chemicals, how they work, what works well. So that was my first step. Also, I ran a lot of roadblocks. When I got to Georgia, there's a lot of licensing. You have to be a technician for 2 years. You have to apply to the Department of Ag to be able to even take the what's called a certified operator exam. So each company has to be licensed with the state, and then you have to have a certified operator to operate. And there was a lot of roadblocks I didn't realize to get that licensing. So I went and actually worked for just a father-son business. I told them I'll work for free. I'll put on 20 customers for them, and in exchange for teaching me, termite protection. It's a company out in Dallas. I talked to some of the big guys around, and none of them, I knew if I went and worked for them, they'd probably want to non-compete with them. I ended up working this deal with this local company, and his son just happened to want his certified operator's license. So once after we got familiar with each other for about a month, I was working for them. They were teaching me termites and a lot of things I didn't know and I needed to know. Then they said, hey, basically I went to them and said, hey, I've been up front. I want to do my own thing, but I do have this issue with licensing. And they were nice. They said, you know what, my son wants to take that test. Why don't you just, bring him on? And so his son worked for his father, but he held the licensing for us so we could get our business off the ground. So that was pretty cool. Competitor in the industry. I was good to them on putting on customers and helping them with their business. There were some things they were doing. I was like, okay, if you do these things a little differently, your business will grow. And so their business has grown. We've They have about 5 trucks now. We've expanded. We have about 30 trucks, about 50 employees. So, but we still stay in touch. He always calls me and says, "John, when are you going to buy me? When are you going to buy me out so I can retire?" So, so it's kind of it's a fun relationship that we have with him. We don't compete directly and try to avoid competing directly, but have always had a good friendship and bounce ideas off each other. So it took a lot of help. I needed help. I needed to learn.
Well, I'm a firm believer in collaboration, and the pie is as big as you want to make it, not that you have competitors in a smaller pie. What gave you the idea? I mean, I have heard a lot of different ways people grow, but the non-paid mentor and really being upfront with the people to say, you teach me, I'll bring on some clients and I'll work for free. How did you come up with that idea?
I think it was, I had talked to, so at first I met them. I came by, I was just dropping off applications. I went to several businesses, here's my application. Times have changed. Not many people go into businesses dropping off paper applications. That was probably one of the last kind of years that was common, but I just went around applying. I had moved back to Georgia, so I wasn't working. I just finished my sales, and we met. It was just kind of, hey, he was like, I don't think this would be a good fit for you. We're not, we could use you, but to him, I seemed overqualified for what he needed in his business.
Right.
And so it was the second time I went back later after I don't know, I just went home. I had this idea as like, he kind of looks at me as, okay, because when I was doing sales in college, we would make a lot of money in a very short period of time with the marketing side, which is, how I was able to fund school. And so for him, he was like, that's a little bit out of what we can pay. And so I think it was like, okay, how can I make this work? And then I just went to him. I was like, look, the first time I talked to him, I didn't tell him I was starting a business, but the second time I went to him and I said, hey, look, my goal is to do my own business. Here's my hurdles. Most of it is education, things I don't know. And then I just said, what if, I put on some customers for you and you taught me some of those things, help me fill in these gaps. If I don't do it here, I got to go work for a big company and who knows how that will go. And he was like, okay, we could use you. He was just super friendly. Right. I don't know. They were just they have great hearts, this family. He was trying to run the business. He had a hard time with computers and technology, and kind of being a guy that worked as a technician for years and kind of later years, and things are changing with technology. I mean, when I got in the industry, everything was paper, and now everything's on computers and apps. And so that was kind of I was able to kind of bridge that gap for him and help him kind of figure out better systems. And so it was a good partnership for at least a year as I got my feet off the ground. So I don't know, that's, I guess, long answer to your story.
No, that's a really good one. I think for our viewers to understand mentors and to understand a win-win situation is real important. And it seemed like you presented a win-win with this gentleman, and obviously that works out. Now, tell us technology. Our viewers are always, we serve the seniors. However, technology is rapidly moving. How are you using technology with your business today? And what could you share with our viewers about how it's impacting your business?
Technology can be frustrating especially if it's a lot of new things. A lot of times I'll see people, like even my parents, that don't even want to try. Like, I didn't have to live with technology when I grew up, and so why do I have to adapt now? From a business perspective, I realized really quickly that I could not grow this business as fast as I did. I said this from year one when we started back in 2014. Now we're 2023, but even in 2014, I could not have started the business and grown it like I did without technology. For example, when I first got in the industry, when a technician needs, he would drive to the office, he would pick up a paper route. So he'd have all of his stops on paper. There was no GPS, or when I got in the industry, GPS was a thing, but, decade before that, there really wasn't any GPS on phones. It's
Mhm.
all the Garmin's. And so then you had to figure out, with a map, how to get to those appointments. Of course, when I first started in the industry, at least we had some degree of GPS. But even from there, they'd have to get to all their appointments, figure out, make sure they treated the right houses. And then they would have to come back, drop off their paperwork at the end of the day, and in the morning, come back to the office, pick up, and do it again. And so just as simple as eliminating that. Now, we're not even talking billing and all the, now you're sending paper mail.
Mhm.
You'd have to collect credit cards. Usually you have, what we call accounts receivable, where you're waiting for customers, of course, to pay you. And so there's all that payment end of it too. That's all automated now. Most customers today, for us, they have a card on file. We do the service. Once the service is done, billing's taken care of. They don't have to go online and click a button. But even from the service side, the technician opens up an app. He just clicks, take me to my next stop. It takes him there. When he's done, by the way, in our industry, you have to fill out a service record for the state.
Mhm.
And so they would have to fill out that record. There would be filing cabinets at the office to just hold. You have to hold 2 years worth of records of holding all these service records,
Mhm.
plus their paper contracts. And then for a new customer, you would have to take that paperwork. That customer would have to be onboarded. They'd have to type what's on the paper with messy technician's handwriting and try to translate that paper into the computer so you could hold them, have them in the system to keep track of everything. So
Mhm.
technology allows us to store that data accurately, because when you set up a customer, you do it, all typed, inside an app. When the technician comes in, he doesn't actually even come in the office. We hire them based on where they live. And so they just go straight out, they do their appointments, and then they come back, or they don't even come back to the office, and except for twice a week to pick up product and just kind of a check-in and maybe drop off some checks if customers chose to pay by check. So
Mhm.
so most of the time, we've cut out all that drive time that's unnecessary to and from the office. Technology takes them to all their appointments. They have no paperwork to drop off at the office for the service slips, because that's all. It doesn't need to be. You almost would have to pay a admin person at the office to be full-time data entry girl or
Right.
guy, right? So
Mhm.
you eliminate a lot of extra costs that is involved too. So efficiency, costs, and then all around just employee satisfaction too, because the technician would prefer not to start his day and end his day at the office. That just makes their day longer, and they'd much rather fill it out electronically than on paper. It takes time to train people.
Right.
When companies transition from paper to electronic, it's a nightmare. It's not fun. But once we were all electronic, and you train people that way, they learn it and they're comfortable, and they don't know how good they have it now and what
Right.
it was. And for us, just cutting out all that extra cost and being much more of an efficient company from a billing to, of course, getting appointments done. Technology makes a huge difference.
Well, it's great insights for our viewers to understand, if you embrace technology, how it can be the benefit for your company. What would you say now that you're recruiting, 50 plus employees, 30 trucks? How is that helping you attract talent out there in the marketplace? Give us an idea of the work environment. Obviously, to grow to 30 trucks and 50 people, you have to have a good environment. Would you share with our viewers what that means as far as recruiting and growing?
Yeah. So a lot of times, so when we approach creating our brand, we looked at, who are the local guys, and a lot of local companies kind of struggle to grow. Like my friend that was in the industry that we worked with, some of it is because times have changed and they're having a hard time adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies say adapt or die, and in some ways that's true. You kind of have to adapt, especially from a business perspective, or you're going to struggle, because your costs, like if someone who's still on paper, their costs are going to be higher. They have to have more employees to manage that business. They also are going to be a whole lot less efficient. Records are going to get lost. There's lots of things that technology helps to bridge that gap.
Right.
But I would say, for me, being able to run my business using technology just allows us to expand, and it attracts new talent, right? When people come in, they don't want to, if I tell them, oh, you're going back to paper the way you did it 10 years ago, the technician's like, oh no, like I don't want to go back. But it also helps to, for us, when we create a brand, we created kind of a modern look, but also culture in a business is huge. They don't want to come work for a company that they don't feel is going places. They, so that's kind of part of our growth is, if we're going to, keep these guys around, we want them to see our vision of where we want to go as a company. We've got to get them on board. And that helps them, a suggestive sell. If they're at a customer's home that has just pest control with us, they're motivated to go, oh, who does your termite protection, or who, the mosquitoes are horrible. When I was treating the back, do you have anyone that treats mosquitoes for you? And so, but also, if a customer maybe wasn't happy about some spider webs or something that was missed last service, our technicians go, we care a lot about, doing a good job. And so we want them to have that care in their service, and that's only going to show as much as they believe in what we're doing as a company and in our brand. So we have core values, we created as part of building our brand over the years. And so those kind of help to really set the vision of what we want our people to represent.
Well, how about, I love your name. So share with our viewers, what was the process when you were thinking about naming a company? And I want to bring up for our viewers, sometimes we get so complicated in a name that people can't remember it. What was the process you went through to keep it simple?
Yeah. Sometimes, and a lot of national brands, they want to keep, like Google, right? Everyone knows Google now, but it's kind of a weird word, probably when we first heard it. And they do that intentionally. So there's no other company that has that name. They've got to be a national brand and not have any name infringements. Unless you're planning on going national or something with it, you don't have to come up with a made up word. And some made up words you can't even say. And so there's a few of our competitors, and people are like, they'll completely pronounce the company they have wrong, and I'll go, oh, it's this, but it's because they're trying to come up with these creative names that people can't pronounce. ProCare, the way we came up with it is we said, okay, we want something people can remember. And originally, I also wanted to pick a name that reflected our values. So at first I just put a bunch of names. I was like Optimus, and then there a lot of local companies pick like Jimmy's Pest Control or Steve's Pest Control. Nothing wrong with that, but I wanted something that wasn't just about, like, when I talk to our people, I don't usually refer to them as employees. I want it to be our company. It's not John's company, because at the end of the day, I want them to own their role. And you're the tech. One of our core values is ownership. Extreme ownership is what we call it. And so we want you to be an extreme owner of your role, as a service tech, as an office, individual, as a sales rep. And so, I wanted to pick a name that wasn't my name or anything to do with me directly, that they could, put themselves as, you're the extreme ownership. So ProCare, I picked actually PureCare originally. I registered it with the state that way. And I picked that name because I liked, pure and how we operate and take care of people. I'm a very religious person. So purity's, something important, just having good morals and values. So, and then care. So, take those morals and values of caring about people and doing a good job. And then there was a company that was too close. So the state approved, the Department of Ag has to approve it too. They said too close to another company called Pure Defense, who actually know a lot better now. At the time, I'd never heard of them, but I know the owners there now. And so basically what ended up happening was we said, okay, how can we had created the brand in the font. It was a bit of a custom font, ProCare is, and I had a good friend that's in branding that I went to high school with. So I'd already paid him to kind of create kind of these bug icons we use in the name. And so we were able to just take the word pro, and I was like, okay, professional care. I can drive with that. And we actually ended up liking it more. I was like, you know what? Thanks, Department of Ag. You helped me out. So I like the name that we've gone with, and the number one thing is that I always tell our employees, those that work for us is, the name's only as good as, we make it as a company,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
ProCare is not a fun name if people have horrible experiences,
Yes.
but it's a great name that people love because, they associate their experience, with that brand. So that's what we really push.
Well, I think of a restaurant person I know. He came over from Cuba and he had a very Spanish name, and it was very complicated. And then his dad passed away before he opened up the restaurant. He named his restaurant Pappy's, which is in Spanish his dad. And now it's a simple name.
Yeah.
If he would have named it like he thought he was going to name it, there's plenty of places I go, oh my gosh, I can't even pronounce that name.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't pronounce it and it's not simple enough, how do you think people are going to be able to remember you? And I think your point about keeping it simple, reflecting values, and there's a lot of thought, I'm sure you, as you described, put into a name. And I think our viewers, just that for them to understand, don't just grab a name out of the, your own personal name. Because I mean, as you grow, it's going to be beyond your personal name. So I think that's a good lesson for our viewers to really grasp. What would you say the challenges today when you give a person a vision of where you're going? What do you tell people as far as, obviously going from one truck to 30 is an incredible success story. When you're recruiting now, how are you recruiting? Are they coming to you by virtue of friends knowing about you? What ways are you using out in the marketplace?
So hopefully helpful for your viewers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of free technology on there online, right? ZipRecruiter is extremely expensive. I've used that before. Indeed, honestly, is the number one way I prefer to encourage to find the right people, because it's free. Now they do always suggest, like, hey, do you want to pay for this to boost your ad?
Yeah.
I find enough people with our business that if I create a good job listing, and sometimes I'll multiply that. For us, we don't care so much. We do want to, let's say we're hiring a tech, we do want them in a certain area where we have a lot of customers and we need a technician there. We don't want to hire a bunch of people maybe in Powder Springs or Kennesaw, and then they're kind of driving out and then coming home. We really want them to cover kind of their zone, called zone defense, kind of like in basketball with trucks and technicians. And so that's kind of when we're looking for people. But I don't always put just one post in Powder Springs. I might put one in Powder Springs and any bordering city, Mableton, Smyrna. So a lot of times, I just know that you can go on there and create a listing. You can even tweak the job name a little bit. So sometimes I'll do like a mosquito tech or a termite tech or pest tech. Our guys do all three, but I'm just trying to get listings out there. And then when they come in, for our industry, they usually don't care about which one they're doing. They just want to get into the pest control industry. Right. And so, so there's a lot of free ways to do it. Don't feel you have to pay. That's another nice thing about technology, right? Is back in the day, you'd have to wait for people to apply, or try to get job postings somehow before the internet, newspaper ads, but now it's easy. People are putting their resumes already online. You can pay companies to pull from that database of resumes, or you can, just put a job posting that's free. Now it does, the beginning, the reach is high. Like a lot of people are going to see it, and over a week it dips down because they want you to pay to boost, the visibility of that ad. Right. And so, what I found is I just repost it every week, and you can do it no cost. I really don't pay for, many companies to, I've had some of my guys at times feel like, oh, we really need a guy, I'm going to pay. And then I'm like, if you would have maybe just put out more postings, you probably could have, done it free. But, so at times our company has paid for it to try to boost the visibility. But if they're thinking ahead and not getting caught off guard by needing to hire someone quickly, then they can do it at no cost.
I tell you, there's many ways today because of technology to be able to grow your business. What would you say? I always like to hear your vision. Like, if we can take you out 5 years, where would you like to see ProCare in say 5 years generally? And I'm always a quarter to quarter, but looking out strategically, where do you see yourself or the business?
So when I first started the company, I had national aspirations. What I realized was Atlanta's a big place. There's a lot of people here, and there's a lot of opportunity if you can create a good brand that people trust to get into other things related, like relate for our industry. Weed and feed. I get asked all the time, hey, could you do our weed and feed? And we focus mainly on insects and small rodents, but there's also the wildlife, which is usually sealing homes. It's called exclusion work, where you seal the gutters and especially getting into the winter here, that business really boosts. And those are more like one-time things. Most people in Georgia have a bug guy. So 90% of our customers, are switching to us from other companies usually. But at the end of the day, for us, what we want to do as growth is continue to expand our customer base, and then maybe get into there's robo mowers. There's a lot of sectors even that are starting to emerge that would be cool to maybe eventually expand into. And so our focus is mainly on just Atlanta, expanding throughout Atlanta, getting our customer base really close together. And so our big vision, there's the PCT Top 100 that they release every year. It's a national magazine. PCT is for bug nerds like me. And so basically they release a top 100 list, and we should be on that top 100 list, I'd say, within the next 5 years. So that's kind of one of my aspirations, was always to kind of make that top 100 in the nation. And do it just focused on expand the Atlanta market, which would make us definitely one of the top three or four companies in Atlanta as far as total customer base. So I'd say that's something we can achieve in the next 5 years and then go from there.
Wow, that's great to hear, because growing companies add so much to the marketplace, to the opportunity. And as I kid around here, is most of the people are retired, and I say, look, I got to continue to work because I got to fund your Social Security. So you got to have more people funding Social Security, or we're not going to happen. So we appreciate you expanding and putting into the system so your grandma and other people in this building can make sure their checks continue to come in.
Oh yeah, I don't have much of a say in it, but I'm happy to help.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, we just thank you for that, because we want more people to be able to contribute to that. What would you say as we wind it down? So with 4 kids, 50 employees, how are you balancing that work-life balance? Our viewers always like to hear that.
Yeah, I'd say in the beginning, it was pretty full on work. Again, when we started the business, we had actually just had our first one, that conversation with the guy in California. I told one was on the way. That baby was on the way, born. So I had a newborn at home. My parents were good enough to take us back in as we took that risk, knowing like, hey, we're going to move to Georgia. Do we risk buying a house? And so, I was fortunate again to kind of take it low risk. I was still risking a lot, but not as much as if I was now, where I've got 4 kids, a house, a lot more liability, a lot more to lose. Right. And so there's still I could have gotten put back in years if it didn't work out, but I took the risk, I think, at a good time. And so props to anyone taking the risk, later, even, you're confident in what you're doing. And it's awesome if you know, like, hey, it's going to be a risk no matter what. But of course, that risk is always limited by experience and knowledge of the industry. So risk can always be diminished, but there's still a risk. So props to anyone taking that jump. But balancing in the end is tough. I'd say I used to work, Monday through Saturday. I've always taken Sundays, as Lord's Day. But as the kids, I had twins 2 years after the first one. And so to your point, the business really had to grow selfishly, and then my wife wanted a baby girl. So we waited a couple more years and we got a girl. So that was great. But the kids are in soccer. I was actually, I coach for a little bit, but it's hard. Usually I'm on Saturday, my phone's blowing up and the game's going. It's really hard to balance that. So I took a step back and said, hey, I can help And so this year I'm assistant coach for my twins team and my older boys team. So I had to stop work early to get to practice. And that's always hard for me to do, but it's just part of being dad. So, so definitely, finding a way. I've started taking weekends completely off where I used to work every Saturday. So now the business is and so my wife's really good. When I wake up, I used to not have time to even exercise. Like I had to, kind of even put my health in some ways to the side. I was always an athlete growing up, and I didn't even have time to get a workout in the morning. But now I take time for myself because I've got to have that balance. And then from there, we go through the work day, and my wife was very good about letting me do my thing. And sometimes I'm home at 9, sometimes I'm home at 5 or 6. Usually if I have to be home for something my wife needs or school with my kids, then I make it a point. She tells me where I need to be when I need to be there. otherwise I keep working. So, but it's just kind of giving when I can, and right now I'm able to give a little bit more, that I have more help, people that I'm paying to help run the business.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a good team. So in your team, do you have a right-hand person, or do you have a group of people that you surround yourself as you're growing? Is that how our viewers, how can they benefit by understanding 1 to 30 is easy to say that, but there's all kinds of things that need to come into your systems and management team. What could you share with our viewers on that?
Yeah. So one of my big concerns is I didn't want to grow too fast. You don't want to sacrifice quality to the customer because you are growing too fast. And I feel what really growing too fast, what happens is it's not the right people, or certainly not trained. So for example, our office staff now, they all have the average experience is probably 5 years with us, but when we first were growing the office, they really didn't know much about what they were doing. Mistakes, can be made. And so certainly over time, we've developed good people, and we really try to hire from within. I've actually never gone outside the business and said, oh, you're a manager for a pest control company or some other company, come work for us. Because I believe in the people that work for us, they want to grow within our organization. And so I take it seriously, like, hey, if they're really going to be a good manager one day, there's some people we hire that aren't there yet, but can we get them there? Maybe. And so we actually just had a retreat with our management staff. So I have two local offices of branch managers that run the operations of those offices. I have an office admin who runs, and she's transitioning to like an HR role as we're growing, keeping track of birthdays and people come up to me, John, I've been working here 3 years. And I'm like, has it been that long? Like, you just lose track.
Sure.
I'm due for my annual review. I'm like, I should be going to them saying, hey, you're due for your annual review, not them coming to me saying, hey, is it time, for my review and maybe, a raise. And so anyways, she's kind of taken on that role where she'll keep track of that and keep track of paid time off. Some of our guys get some vacation time to take a break and hopefully come back renewed and refreshed. So anyways, it's all about having the right team. We definitely, it's all installment in stages. There's a lot people want to sell to you with employee benefits and stuff like that. And we do have a lot of benefits now, but we didn't when we started. People didn't come to work for us because we offered awesome benefits. They liked the local feel. They liked knowing the owner and knowing that we weren't going to fire them on the spot if one little thing went wrong. And they had a relationship. I think it was a big thing. They had a relationship with our company and our people. And so, we get good feedback from customers like, oh, I love this company because their technicians love working for this company. And so, and so we've added those employee benefits to kind of keep people around and reward them over time. But that's all been in stages, but certainly growing the right staff, also is in stages, take time.
That's awesome to hear. As we wind down, give us a little idea of, because people always like to know your morning routine. So what's your morning routine starting the day, getting those wins early? How does that look as far as what you've developed in habits or anything like that?
So what I've noticed is at 9 o'clock, my phone rings, usually sometimes even 8:30. If it rings at 8:30, it's a customer. If it rings at 9, it's usually one of my management staff. So-and-so's called out. I got to cover for me, just little details like that. And so I know if I'm going to exercise, like I mentioned earlier, I'd always miss it. And it was usually frustrating for me because I wanted to go for my run or get my health exercise in the morning. And then it was always interrupted. So I always had the intention to do it, and then plans would change. So that can be frustrating. So what I realized is, okay, I got to get up early. Now my kids at 7 o'clock, they're up getting ready for school, and they're going to interrupt me. So I have to get up about 5:36 if I'm really going to get a good focused, exercise in. And then kids are up at 7. Usually it's good if I'm ready to help the wife, with getting them out the door from there. Work's going by 9, 10, full blown on the phone. I do a lot with sales with the guys. Most of them take their lunch around 2. Then I'll go till 5 or 6. If I have to be home, I'll head home. But if I can keep working, I still again try to push the daylight hours. So now it gets dark at 7:30. We just got out of the summer, which it would get dark till 8:39. So yeah, I would kind of just in the midsummer, that's our busy season. So I pretty much work with the daylight. The winter's kind of nice because I do slow down a bit with work, and the daylight hours aren't as long. So I can call it, a little earlier and spend some more family time. But my wife understands when it comes summertime, and, I'm going from, 8 to 9 or 9 to 9. So it's busy, but I get that. She knows I'm going to take weekends off. So it's a good trade-off. So.
Yeah. And growing a business, I think people don't always tell you how hard it is to be an entrepreneur and, have everything on your shoulders. So this is for our Overture residents. How has your grandma been an influence to you? And actually your grandparents and your dad and mom, what would you share with our viewers that really, how did that shape, the person that you are today?
Yeah. So my father's Army guy. He flies for Delta now, but he flew Apaches in the Gulf War, and my grandpa's military, was in the Navy. And so growing up, I remember making a week trip they're from Puyallup, Washington. They live here now, but we were stationed at Dobbins. That's why my dad came to Georgia. And so I remember taking a week trip to visit grandma, and she was always so sweet and very nice. Unfortunately, I didn't get to grow up a ton with her, but when I was a teenager, she was living in Florida from Washington, and she was very nice to let us go down. My sister and I did a senior trip and stayed with her, and I stayed with her quite a few times, just driving down to Florida, maybe going to the beach with some friends, and she was in Orlando, so it's kind of a good drive down there, an hour to the beach. But I'd say the one thing I've learned with grandma, she doesn't put up with anything. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And you're not gonna convince her any different. So and she's super straightforward. She'll tell you what she's thinking. And I think that rubbed off on my dad. My dad's exactly the same way. And I would say that's one thing is my wife probably hates it because she'll ask me like, what do you think about this? And I'm going to give her my honest opinion.
Right.
I'm going to tell her how it is. I joke that I'm not my sister because my sister will go, oh, that's beautiful. That's cute. I'm like, it's ugly. And she's like, why can't you be more like your sister? Right. But yeah, I'd say that's what I've learned from grandma is just being straightforward and seeing things that right is right, wrong is wrong, and
right.
And she calls it how it is, and she's just a straight shooter. So
yeah, well, we have breakfast together quite a bit, and when I first came here, your granddad and your grandma, they would come into breakfast holding hands. It was a beautiful thing to see, the just the way that people a little bit older just cherished each other. And, they would always come to breakfast and always be a part of, the group down there because it was, the family, I guess the community was real important to both of them. And it was just cool to watch them come into breakfast holding hands. So yeah, that's neat to see. I know that's what impressed me, and then I got a chance to meet you at your granddad's memorial. And then I was blown out because you came up to me and go, "Do you remember me?" I didn't. Well, you had a beard now and you didn't have one there, but years go by and you don't always remember. But man, I remembered how you had that ambition and where you were going. It didn't surprise me. And I was talking to your grandmother and she goes, I said, does John have like a couple trucks? And she said 20. And then I got corrected from her. She goes, no, he doesn't have 20. He has 30. I went, holy mackerel. That was hilarious when that conversation came by. Well, I wanted to be respectful of your time because I know you're coming across town to visit your grandma, and squeezing us in with a little show on our podcast is special because we always like to talk to people and give our viewers an understanding how hard it is to make it in business and today to grow. So I'm two things before I let you go. Can you recommend a guest for us? We always ask our guests that we want guests like yourself to come on our show. So can you recommend anybody that you think would be a good guest for our podcast?
Good question. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and when I listen through the podcasts, I always learn something. Like I love listening to podcasts because there's always these little gold nuggets. So I hope your viewers get something.
Oh, they will.
Conversation. So because podcasts, I actually listen to them while I'm working out. My wife's like, I don't know how you do that. I've got to have music, but it helps me, my brain get going in the morning, and my entrepreneur mind, start thinking. And so hopefully they'll get something out. As far as guests go, I'm trying to, for the life of me, think of, you'd think I would, I'm just not, I'm not as, I can think of some businesses, from different networking groups and stuff I've been a part of over the years.
Well, we'll do this. We'll have when it goes live, I'll have Martina reach out to you, and maybe you can think of when you're traveling across town to Lawrenceville that you have that windshield town
with a lot of small businesses.
Do you?
But none that are standing out right now.
Okay, no problem.
But I'm sure I've got somebody.
Yes. Well, we always give our guests a parting thought for our viewers. What would you want first? How did they get a hold of you? Give our viewers a contact point, and we'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah. So my name's John. I'm the John the third, named after grandpa who's the first. But it's just John, John, and then the name of the company, ProCare Pest. So just add pest at the end.com. So John@ProCarePest.com is my email. Anyone's welcome to email me anytime. Number 678-613-3343. Welcome to text or call. If you got something that's just easier to discuss over a call. If I don't answer right away, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
But those are usually the best ways to reach me. My office can connect with you or connect us through our website, ProCarePest.com.
Well, that's awesome. So the last entrepreneur thought you can leave our viewers with, what book you're reading or what you like out there that people can learn from.
So my biggest inspiration growing up was the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, Robert Kiyosaki. I actually still listen to those on tape once every couple years. Usually just to remind me, but of course that book's all about how to get your money to work for you, and that was something that I really got me kind of thinking, okay, how do I not only get a job and make money, but then start putting that money to work? And so I appreciate that book for several concepts, more than just that it teaches, mainly financial education. But other than that, there's I would say, trying to come to mind here, Built to Last. Trying to remember, Collins wrote it. He has a few really good, very good data books. they publish a lot of data of why companies are successful and other companies fail, and it's a lot about leadership and creating a brand. So those are some of my favorite.
Awesome.
Books, but.
Well, I know we'll try to put that in our show notes, and so people can glean and understand that, because we want our viewers to understand the successful principles of being able to grow a business. So, John, I want to thank you. We went over a little bit, but hey, look, when you're having fun and you're talking about growth, our viewers always like to hear about growth. Now, you got to give a shout out to your grandma before you go.
Oh,
So
yeah.
can you give a shout out?
For sure. Love you, Judith. I saw her outside. I was like, "You look beautiful today, Grandma." So
Awesome.
she's awesome.
She's a good card player too. So I know her team, they like her playing, but she's definitely a focused person that's in there to have fun and compete. So
She
Judith,
doesn't like to lose.
yes,
she is good.
yes.
She's a good sport if she does lose. So expect her to bring her A game and be
yes,
for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate you very much, and thanks for taking the time to be on our show.